Americans just got a new grocery inflation number, and at first glance it looks almost harmless. Food at home rose just 0.1% in May. That sounds tiny. That sounds like relief. But then, you walk into a grocery store, grab coffee, fruit, cereal, drinks, maybe something for dinner, and the receipt still feels like a punch in the face. And that is the real story behind the May CPI report. The Bureau of Labor Statistics says grocery prices were up 2.7% from a year earlier. Not exploding, not collapsing, still rising. And for a lot of families, that difference matters. Because inflation slowing down does not mean prices went back down. It means they are climbing more slowly from a level that already feels too high. But here's where things get interesting. Inside the grocery cart, the story is not the same for every item. According to the May CPI report, non-alcoholic beverages went up in May, with coffee and tea materials rising too. Cereals and bakery products increased. Fruits and vegetables also moved higher. But dairy moved lower. Cheese dropped. The meats, poultry, fish, and eggs category fell slightly for the month. So, one shopper can look at coffee and produce and say, everything is still getting worse. Another shopper can look at eggs or dairy and say, some prices are finally easing, and both can be right. That is why this debate gets so heated. The official number averages the country. Your family budget does not. Your budget depends on what you actually buy, where you live, how many people you feed, and how often you eat at home. And that is the part people are angry about. Politicians and economists talk about percentages, families talk about dinner. They talk about switching brands, cutting snacks, buying less meat, skipping takeout, or staring at a receipt wondering how 3 bags of groceries turned into a serious budget decision. Now, to be clear, the May food at home number was not the biggest driver of headline inflation. The broader CPI report showed headline inflation running much hotter than grocery inflation, largely because energy prices jumped. Gasoline was up sharply from a year earlier, and energy costs were one of the loudest parts of the May inflation story. But grocery prices are different politically and emotionally. You may complain about gas once a week. You see food prices every time you feed your family. And when the government says food at home rose 2.7% over the year, many Americans hear something else. Your bill is still higher, and no one is coming to reset it. This is not just about 1 month. It points to a much bigger problem in the American economy. People do not experience inflation as a clean line on a chart. They experience it as a series of trade-offs: better coffee or cheaper coffee, fresh fruit or frozen fruit, restaurant meal or dinner at home, brand name or store brand, full cart or half cart. And when those trade-offs become normal, people start to lose trust in the language of recovery. That is the conflict at the center of this report. The data says grocery inflation cooled compared with some earlier spikes, but the public mood says the price level is still painful, and those two things can exist at the same time. A slower increase is better than a faster increase, but it is not the same as affordability. The May report also shows how uneven inflation has become. Fruits and vegetables were up more than overall food-at-home inflation over the year. Non-alcoholic beverages were up too. Meanwhile, dairy was down from a year earlier. That makes grocery inflation harder to explain in a soundbite because it is not one clean story. It is a split-screen economy at the checkout line. Some prices easing, some prices rising. And the total bill still high enough to keep people mad. This matters because food is not optional. You can delay a vacation. You can keep an old phone. You can drive less if you have to. But you cannot opt out of feeding your household. That is why grocery inflation hits differently than almost any other category. It turns national economic data into a private argument at the kitchen table. And Americans are starting to ask a serious question. If inflation is cooling, why does normal life still feel so expensive? The answer is uncomfortable. Cooling inflation does not erase the past. It only changes the speed of the next increase. So the May CPI report may be technically good news on groceries, but emotionally, it is not a victory lap. It is a warning. If leaders want Americans to believe the economy is stabilizing, they have to understand what people actually feel. The damage is not only in the monthly number, it is in the price level that families are now forced to live with. So here is the real question. When you look at your own grocery bill, does it feel like inflation is cooling, or does it feel like Washington is measuring one economy while you are living in another? Drop your take in the comments, hit like if you want more breakdowns like this, and subscribe for clear, no-spin coverage of the numbers that actually hit your wallet.